On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
So what's in today's show, Mr. John?
Well, Hannes, this week we're finding ourselves much closer to home than usual because we're going to Exeter to see Miss Guinevere. And who's Miss Guinevere, are you asking? She is the much appreciated, much loved Assistant Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and for the last year or so she has been working on a project about the late Odette Tchenine, and she's going to tell us all about it.
I like Miss Guinevere. She understands little chickens who live behind compost heaps.
I really like the old credits.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs. I'm the Director of the Centre. Something's going on over there. I wonder what it is.
And now, it's Gwen Dibley's Pearls of Wisdom.
An inexperienced physician makes a lumpy churchyard.
Now, where was I? Yes, of course. My name's John Downs. I'm the Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and this is the CFZ dog, Archibald Archimedes the Archimandrite, better known as Archie. And twice a week, on Wednesday evenings at 6:30 and on Saturday afternoons at 3 o'clock, we bring you a messy mélange, a miscellany, if you like, of, plus all sorts of other things that begin with them, of. Hard science, weird shit, and surreality. Archie, do you want to tell the ladies and gentlemen what surreality is?
I don't really know, Dad. I think it's something to do with you and Uncle Richard being stupid.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we've got this out of the way, I want to introduce today's guest. You'll always have heard me speak about her because she has been in the credits for the show for about a year and a half. But now I want to introduce you to the one and only Miss Guin Palmer, who is going to tell you all about the work she has been doing about the late BigFoot expert Odette Tchenine. So, Gwyn, my dear,
yes,
can you give us the background on the book? Where did it come from? Why are we doing it, and what is it?
Well, in 2020, yes, that's baby's coming. In 2020, I was doing the blogs for you on the website, and I was nagging you because I was saying, give me something else. I need something else to do. I know you've got lots to do, so give me something. And you very kindly handed me Odette. And your first request was that I look into her family history. It's rubbish.
That's lovely. That's not Odette.
Was that I look into her family history and just see if there was anybody still living today who was related to her because of this manuscript that you had, and you wanted to see, if there was anybody we could make contact with. So I I set to looking for her parents, her siblings, any cousins, anybody that I could find, and I managed to find a lady on Ancestry. And I won't say her name because I'm not sure if she does want me to say her name or not, so I won't. But she's been incredibly helpful the whole time, with lots of information that I'll go into a bit further on. But she kick-started me on the family tree, and gave me some names to go with, and I was able to find both of her parents. I was able to find her brother, and I found out that Odette never married, and neither did her brother. Her brother was sadly killed in 1940 in a bombing in London. It was the Whiteley stores in Paddington. I think he was either stood outside or he was going past them, and a bomb went off, and he was killed. So there's a memorial to him in Paddington, along with the other people that were killed at the same time by this bomb. So sadly, he never married or had children. Odette never married. And there's no trace of any relationships that I can find, apart from one person, which was George Allison, who was the manager of Arsenal Football Club. I can't remember the years now, but he was. I've got it written down actually. He was an English football journalist, broadcaster, and manager. He was the BBC's first sports commentator and Arsenal's second longest-serving manager. Now we think that they're linked because she has put a couple of dedications to him in a couple of her books. And we found the odd picture of them together. So that's the only very vague link we've got between the two of them. But other than that, she seemed to be a very solitary figure. No doubt she had a lot of friends. A lot of acquaintances that were very fond of her and she was very fond of, but there is no, as far as I can find, living relatives of hers in the UK. If we go back a stage to her parents' generation and their siblings, I've been able to find brothers for her father, and her mother I think had one brother. I've got their family tree all set up, so I can send you the details to that maybe, so people can see that. But they will all be in either Russia or France, because her father was Russian and her mother was French. And they actually came over to England just after Odette was born. So all of their family will be back in Russia or France. So yeah, it wasn't easy to find, because right at the time was when the Russia and Ukraine war was starting to get, and I was having trouble finding records, and I managed to get, because her father Dmitri was born in Feodosia, which is on the border of Crimea in the Black Sea. And I got an email from them with his birth details on it, literally the day before the war was declared on the news between Russia and the Ukraine. So if it had been any later than that, I wouldn't have had any information at all. But yeah, my next task with that is to go back and try and get his parents' details and try and find out if any of his siblings have children, so if there's any cousins living anywhere, or that's the next task on the family tree.
Well, I think you've done a magnificent job, because I gave you the manuscript of her unpublished third book.
Yes.
Richard and I got through some very peculiar circumstances, because Richard, years ago, was on a train, and he was sitting next to some bloke because the train got stuck or stopped or something, and told this guy that he was a cryptozoologist. Then, totally out of the blue, about 4 years later, the bloke contacted him and said that he'd just bought a pile of Odette Tchenine's papers, which we signed. So we gave him 150 quid and got a box of these things. We then gave them to to find some more stuff. You met that lady in Easter. No, East.
Yeah.
I can't do my east and west and my north and south today. You met that lady who lived not far from where I was at school. And she came over with her lovely daughter and you and I think Mohammed. But Mohammed was just a very, very small baby.
Mohammed was really small then. He was I think he was only just walking when we came.
That when Mohammed met the cat. And he was fascinated by my cat.
Yes. We had to help him be very gentle.
Richard and I were incredibly impressed. We got about a sheaf of papers this thick. When this lady, who is this the one who will remain nameless at the moment?
Yes, only because I don't want to say her name and she doesn't want me to, you know. But yes, she has been fantastic.
She had 6 or 7 bloody great plastic boxes.
She's got what I saw that day. I think they brought about 3 boxes with them. That was just part of it. She very kindly then went on to copy most, if not all, of these documents for me. And then when I was either pregnant with Ebo or I just had him, and she brought me down files and files of this paperwork, which had images in it, it had poetry, it had drawings, paintings, articles. It's just amazing stuff that she was lucky enough to find in an auction in North Devon, I believe.
I wonder if it's the same auction that we got ours from as well.
It would be so bizarre if it was. It would just be kismet if it is. But I think she likes to go through these old documents and things and try and find people that it's related to and kind of get it back to them. But obviously with Odette, there was nobody around. So she kept hold of it and has just been fascinated, the same as I have, looking through it and finding out all about Odette.
I've found the longer I'm a Fortean, the longer weird things like this happen.
Yeah.
But I think
it's strange how these coincidences. Here you go, isn't it? Sorry.
I think it's wonderful because after all these years, Odette's third book, by the time you watch this, will be available.
Yes.
So tell me, what's in the book? What's the book about?
So the book is, as far as we know, Odette's last manuscript. It was unpublished when she died. I'm not sure of the year, but I think from a pencil mark that she left in there, it was 1986.
Yeah, she died in 1991, I think.
She died in 1992. She was 96 years old. But yes, I believe that is the very last one, and it was hand typed. So she would have sat there with these pieces of paper herself in her hand and typed these out on a typewriter. And it's basically piecing together sightings, evidence. She's kind of trying to corral the evidence in together. It's kind of almost like it's like putting the pieces of the jigsaw together, all about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Almasty, all of the different cultural versions of the big hairy beasties. But she quoted something in there that I think is quite unique and important in the Zoology. She wanted to bring into existence, bring into the vocabulary, a word which meant that it gave us a grounding to use to bring together the missing link, as she called it, between Bigfoot, I'll just use that general term, and us, human beings. she very strongly believed that there was a missing link there. There is something that will be identified at some point that will be that link between us, and people will finally just say, "Ah, yes, there it is. That's what we've been looking for." And that's what she was trying to puzzle together in this book. Is this the right link? Is that the right link? How can we link these things together? Who can research this? How can we get the funding to research this? It was all very, it was almost like the final sort of pulling together of everything that she'd researched throughout her life into this manuscript, which is just, it's fascinating to read. And it really does make me think. It's and I think it's something that we really need to think about. It's a fascinating subject, that missing link between us and what is out there walking around in the woods, in the snow, in lots of different civilizations. Because of course there's lots of different of the BigFoot, the Sasquatches, the Almasties, they're all in their different civilizations, but there's got to be a link between all of us somehow, somewhere. And that's what she was trying desperately to get people to realize, and trying to put the evidence right in front of you. Here it is in my book. You just look, it's here. It's just look into it, please, is what she's trying to say. So
I'm so impressed with 2 little feet of your own that you've managed to find time to do all this, because the amount of stuff that you've put into the tribute page on our website to Odette is absolutely awesome.
Well, it's amazing what you can do during nap time, but it's also, I've been able to piece stuff together in sort of gaps of time that I can just sit here on my phone and just Google something and think, oh right, so she's written 5 plays. Where are these 5 plays? And then I'll go and search out and find where they are. Like in the British Museum, they've got 5 of her plays there. And there's something I want to do in the future. It's called I forget what it's called now. Orphaned documents, orphaned works. So you can do a request for an orphaned work, and because if that author hasn't got anybody living, or if they're not living themselves, but haven't got anybody around who's got any kind of right to that document anymore, then they can release it into the public domain, and then you can then go ahead and use it. So something like a play, you can then use that play and run it. You can go and get people, get actors, get it on stage, get it running. You have access to it. It's freely available to the public. That's something I really want to do, because there's these 5 plays sat here that she wrote when she was a teenager and in her early 20s that there's no evidence of. There's no video of it. There's a few reviews, but they're all sat there, and that's what I find fascinating. And that's the kind of thing that I come across and stumble across whilst they're asleep, or if Mohammed doesn't have a nap during the day, he goes to bed about 7 o'clock at night. So I'm like, right, what can I look at now? And I find these little snippets, and I think, right, I really want to do that. I really want to go and find out what this is all about. And that's what keeps me going. And I keep finding these new bits, and then she becomes more and more important every time I find a new bit of evidence, something else that she's done, an article she's written. I think she was a very important historical female figure in cryptozoology. And I think I would like to bring her to the forefront as a very important female figure for us, because as you know, and as you've said yourself, we need to promote females in cryptozoology. It's a very male dominated kind of environment. And I think she could be a great figurehead for it. And there's just so much out there to look at. It's fascinating, and she was fascinating. And every little bit that you see on that on my website that I did is just a tiny bit. But even through that, you can see why I'm so I get really kind of excited about it. There's just so much that she's done, and it's so varied. she's gone. She talks about women's football, and then she goes on to talk about how a woman can dress in this particular clothing to do this kind of particular task, and that will make her feel good about herself. And then she'll go and talk about some sort of political something that's happening, or she's just so diverse, and she was so strong and keen. She didn't let anybody, or at least that's the impression I get. She didn't let anybody stop her and tell her, no, you're a woman. This is, back in 1918 when she wrote the play, she was in her early 20s. This was the era when men were dominant in publishing, in journalism, in books, in films, and it was when women just weren't there. But she was forcing her way forward. She was pushing through against all of this, and she stayed dominant. She stayed a presence throughout her whole life in so many different ways, in poetry, in articles, in books, in she would write short stories for children's books. And I've got some of the things that this lady sent to me was letters written by children sent back to her saying, I really enjoyed your story. And she was doing everything, and she wouldn't let anybody tell her, no, you're just a woman. That just wouldn't, I know if she sat in front of me today, I know that just wouldn't even compute in her. She would just brush that off. That's not, I'm here, this is what I want to talk about, and that's what's just going to happen. That's the impression I get of her.
I have a feeling in the back of my mind that you're going to end up writing her biography, aren't you?
That is my ultimate goal, and that's why I'm researching as much as I can, and I'm gathering information all the time. I'm gathering as much as I can so that I can present something which is almost like the complete works of, or I basically want to write something to say, look, this is who she is. This is what she did. This is how important she is. And I want to be able to include as much as I can. And at the moment, all I've got is British information from the UK that I've been able to find. But I know that she went to America, she went to Canada, she went to Russia, so there's going to be more information there. And that's why it's going to take me a while, but I'm going to get there, and it's going to be massive. But I'm going to love doing it. I'm going to love every second of doing it, because she's fascinating. And she's a strong female character that if somebody said to me, who do you want to bring back from the past? Who do you admire? Who would you like to, somebody famous? And, I wouldn't say a singer. I wouldn't say an actor. I wouldn't say some big political figure. I would say I want Odette. I want Odette to come back. I want to have an afternoon tea with her. I want to talk about whatever it is that just made her happy. Just, whatever she was passionate about. I just want to listen to her. When I spoke to Colonel Blashford Snell on the phone whilst I was doing some research, he was really kind, and he talked me through and helped me with some evidence that he's got, some bits and pieces that he's got. And he said to me, the thing he remembers the most about her is when she used to come and visit him, and she'd wear her fur coat, because that was the era. She'd have some sort of beads or pearls around her neck. Her hair was all curled, and she'd have with her a string bag full of documents. It was just packed full of documents, papers. And she would sit with a cup of tea and talk to him, and she'd pull out these papers and say, look at this, look at what I found here. Or you're going here next month, go and find this for me, find out what you can find out about this for me. Or she was just so passionate, and I can just imagine her walking into a room with her fur coat and her pearls and her string bag and her, that's the vision I have of her. And I would love to spend time with her. That would be just fascinating.
I'm going to make
Imagine if you could interview her.
I'm going to make another prediction.
Yeah.
You're going to find an amateur dramatics group, probably in Exeter, and get them to put on one of her plays.
I would love that too. You're reading my mind. You're reading my mind. I would love to get her plays, and I'd love to give it to somebody and say, look, can you just can you do this for me? And yeah, I would love that. To actually watch something that she wrote, watch it come to life. That would be fascinating. And they're from her early years. They're from these are when she was not even 25. Just imagine, she wrote 5 plays before she was 25, and she died when she was 96. Imagine how much she crammed in to her life. We're just touching, it's just the tip of the iceberg. But I think she was fascinating, and I'm completely obsessed with her. As you can tell.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you can buy the book, which is called Alive, The Missing Link, by Odette Tchenine and edited by Guin Palmer. You can buy it at this link. And you can also see the first part of the collection of Odette memorabilia that Guin has managed to get together at this link. Now, you probably guessed, but Guin was the lady who, when I was in hospital twice earlier this year, took over as acting director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology. And, unless something absolutely horrible happens, she is the lady who I have chosen, I think nominated is probably a better word, to take over from me when my dissolute life, not dissolute anymore, but the way I've lived my life, much of it, finally catches up with me and I disappear off this mortal coil. The next director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology will be this darling lady.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
And there's the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little house, will tell you. Don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you won't be told when the next episode's gonna be.
And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is about it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to say a big thank you to the people but for whom the show would not have been made. First of all, I'd like to thank my producer Louis, who has now deigned to return to these shores after gallivanting around the colonies for a couple of months, and it is lovely to have him back. And I would also like to say a big, big thank you to my guest this week, who is my successor, the lovely Guinevere Palmer. And I also want to say a big thank you to the late Odette Tchenine, but for whom none of this would have happened. Finally, before I go, I want to wish a speedy recovery to Miss Maxine, who is extremely ill at the moment, and we all send love and healing vibes to you and hope you'll be back with us soon. So, I'm going to be back next week, and what am I going to be talking about next week? Well, I'm not actually sure, but I've got a few ideas, because by the time you watch this, the BigFoot Day that's being promoted by Daniel Barnett and his family and colleagues will have come and gone, and we're going to be doing a lot of filming there. I think that's quite probably what's going to be happening next week. And we're also, somewhere along the line, probably next Wednesday, going to be having an obituary for Rip Heppel, the Loch Ness veteran who died this week. This week being about 3 weeks ago by the time you watch this. So, are you listening, Mr. McCrinnan? If you're there watching the show and I'm here doing what I normally do, what am I going to be doing, Mr. McCrennan? I'll be seeing you.